Today's Torah Talk is being held in the beautiful sanctuary of Knesset Israel here in Annapolis, Maryland. We're going to be discussing the Torah portion, Devarim. This is a very important Torah portion for this period of the year because this is the Torah portion that's always read the week of the commemoration of the 9th of Av, the fast of the Tisha B'Av. We fast because we are marking the destruction of both temples which occurred on the date, the 9th of Av. Both temples were destroyed on this date. And this Parsha also deals with Moses is repeating the Torah. He's remembering and going over a lot of the past events and a lot of the difficulties that he's had, that the Israelites have been having. He rebukes the Israelites for their past sins, and he's also repeating the commandments and putting more emphasis on certain commandments and also explaining them a little bit better to the Israelites. And this Torah portion also deals with Echa, which is lamentation, which is weeping.
Jews in America have a good life. We don't have much to worry about. There's not much for us to lament for. So I'm not sure I understand what all this lamentation is about for the life we live.
Are you sure that we understand and learn the lesson from our past? I ask you a question. Did you ever visit Auschwitz, Birkenau? Birkenau is Auschwitz too. This is the place that the most mass killing of our people occurred. Now, Devarim, dealing with events and occurrences in the ancient time. But in Tisha B'Av, we mourn not only at the temple, we mourn over occurrences. When you stand on the front of the gas chambers in Birkenau and you look and you remember all those stories, is nothing more serious than those feelings of Tisha B'Av to commemorate those events and connected them between past and our present life. Now I ask you a question. Do you think that we learned a lesson? Do you think that our people worldwide or in this country understand and learn the lesson from the past? If you stand in the front of Birkenau, mass murder of the Jews, and you think is any nation of the world came out of a serious declaration, do you feel comfortable to go to United Nations and ask them to come out with a serious declaration post-Holocaust? No. Most public schools teach the Holocaust. But what about England? Do you realize that the Holocaust program little by little been eliminated in England? Do you realize that just by watching Schindler's List or reading a book about the Shoah, about the Holocaust, or visit museum, is that something that make it happen? Do you feel that our children, your children, my children, our grandchildren are fully educated over our past? How can we assure ourselves that the history will not repeat itself?
Why is it that Americans are so unfamiliar with Tisha B'Av? I mean, I understand it's one of the most important days of the year to observe, yet most American Jews may be aware that it exists, but little more than that. They don't know what it's about, and they don't generally observe it by fasting or attending services or anything.
I think it's a combination of education and spreading the word. The reason we have a program like that is because we want more people who are not so familiar to be aware of what is our national tragedy of Tisha B'Av and how can we rectify this Tisha B'Av.
You make a really good point for tying in the recognition of Tisha B'Av with something a little bit closer to home, a little bit fresher in our memory, our collective memory, and that's the Holocaust, the Shoah. And I think that's something that maybe more Americans should be able to tap into and be aware of, and it may, be able to be a point of departure where they can then appreciate commemoration.
Now I think it's not only the Shoah, it's Devarim. Tells you a name, places, nation try to attack us, up and down events, all this series of lamentation that Moses lamented, Isaiah, Jeremiah, those ancient names. It's not just ancient history. Look how many times our story repeats itself. Think about Jews who live in a ghetto. Think about Jews who live in the 13th century with the crusade. Think about Jews who persecuted over generations from one place to another. is never until very short ago, 60 years ago, that we never have our own ability to have our own state. Yet, within our states, we, American Jewry, are the big Satan, the Israeli are the small Satan, and we need to negotiate with whom? With people who wants to kill us, and the whole world sometimes against us. All this world turmoil, not only in our credit cards and our national debt, but the whole turmoil over the world is very much related to Tisha B'Av, because Tisha B'Av is a destruction of the core idea of religion, which is the temple.
Okay, so let me ask you this. All right, so it's just been recently, within maybe the last, since the Reformation, the last 200 years or so, where more Jews have stopped observing Tisha B'Av, right? Especially in America. You know, Jews have stopped to. So for a long period of time, Jews were observing Tisha B'Av and were fasting, and it was a normal part of the yearly practice. Obviously we didn't learn our lesson. We still don't have a temple. So what is different about now when we have Jews, American Jews that aren't observing Tisha B'Av, don't know what Tisha B'Av is? How can we tell them, look, we have to observe this, we have to remember, we have to fast, when we still we didn't learn our lesson before? What's different now?
Tisha B'Av is a reflection, past and present. Helen Thomas, many anti-Jewish movements worldwide, colleges, boycott against Israel. All of that is something that should touch our Jewish soul regardless to our level of observance. Can you imagine if your neighbor come to your door and say to you, I want to kill you? Can you imagine people in this country, if they are bombed from north and south and they carry on like nothing happened, while our brothers and sisters in Israel carry that every single day? Yet, we have a responsibility. We, meaning the American Jewry, we as the people who care for our future, and we, meaning the humankind. Tisha B'Av is a message to us as the Jews, but to the whole world. The idea that we don't have temple is not just the building, is the idea that in our time we don't have the ability to unite.
How can we get other American Jews to observe Tisha B'Av and bring us to that next level?
Yeah, when it's so obvious that one of the main reasons why we still haven't been able to rebuild the temple is because we have such huge fractures in the world Jewish community. What can we do about Tisha B'Av to help unite these fractures, to help unite the Jewish people? What can we do?
It can start with sharing the story of Tisha B'Av, sharing the story of the ancestors. Think of Napoleon. The man entered the land of Israel on Tisha B'Av, and he saw the Jews sitting on the floor and lamenting and crying. And he said to them, why are you doing that? And they said, our temple destroyed. He said, when that happened? 1,000 years ago. So he walked out and he said to his chief of staff, these people always survive because they remember what happened to them and they mourn over an event that happened so many years ago. So that's part of our secret of survival, to remember our past, but to find application to our times, to see how we can embed our world. It starts with people going to Poland. It starts with teaching the story of our people. It starts with Devarim, the way that Moses described to Jewish people their past history.
But not everybody has the ability to be able to take that opportunity to fly to Poland, to stand in Auschwitz-Birkenau. So is that where fasting comes in, the idea of actually taking in a fast?
It's first and foremost the act of unity. We are part of a nation, part of past, present, and please God, future. Fasting, we are connected emotionally, spiritually, and physically to our past. We build and we are because of our ancestors. We owe them the past story of their sacrificial offering of life, and we owe them the fast of Tisha B'Av. So if you can, please try to be part of international Jewish fasting of Tisha B'Av. We believe that the temple will be rebuilt. It is in our hand. It's in our power to make a difference in our daily lives, in our fasting of Tisha B'Av, in our striving to unite, and hopefully one day we'll celebrate Tisha B'Av.